of time now. Should we start? Yes? Good.
Me?
Good. So thank you for being here. So my name is Andrea Provaglio, and I've been in the Agile space for a very long time because I just love it. And one of the things that is very dear to me is the concept of Agile leadership. For the very simple, oh, by the way, can you hear me okay? My audio is fine? Good.
Yes,
okay.
Very fine. Very
Okay.
good. Very good.
If you want me to speak slower, because when I get excited, I tend to go fast, so I can slow down. So yes, I was telling you, Agile leadership. I'm very passionate about Agile leadership because it goes so deep into the way people relate to each other. And it's also one of the things that can make a very big difference in organizations, can really transform an organization. But, and there's a lot under this umbrella of Agile leadership, because when you talk about Agile leadership, first of all, you need to understand what Agile means. Also, you also need to understand what leadership means. Then you have to put the two things together and try to make a good use of this. So it's not simple actually, but it's very fascinating. I love it. So luckily we are using Zoom, and so we can interact a little bit better than using other tools. So one thing, oh, by the way, you guys are all from I'm the only one not speaking Portuguese here, right?
Nope, I'm from Bulgaria.
Oh, okay. Yes.
Hi, I'm from Peru.
From Peru, okay. So one Bulgarian person and one Spanish-speaking person. Okay, good. So what I will do, I will probably break the large group into smaller groups using the breakout rooms so you can interact more easily. And another thing that I would like to share with you is the Miro board. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Miro, but it's just like a giant whiteboard and you can draw on that, use sticky notes and many other interesting things. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to copy in the chat the link to a Miro board that I have created for this workshop. So if you click on the link, your browser should open, and you are free to, yes, I see people showing up already. I see people on the board. Yeah. So just remember, when we will work on the Miro board, of course, you will need to use your browser. Otherwise, we can just stay in touch here using Zoom. Good. So let me share my screen for a second. I will share my Miro board. This one. Oh, by the way, if you don't like to see all the cursors on the screen, if this is confusing to you for some reason, just remember there is this button up here. This button where you can hide the collaborator's cursors. Basically this one, you see. Let me, what is it? Well, here. If I do this, I don't see your cursors anymore. Okay, if I click, I see everybody's cursor. And in large groups, sometimes having too many things moving around can be confusing. So anyway, this is what I'd like to do with you today. Ow. Bring it back. So this is my, let's say, backlog for today. I'd like to understand a little bit better what it means to do business in the 21st century. And after that, how organizations usually work in terms of structure and in terms of leadership. And this will be just an introduction. Then again, we don't have much time because we started a bit later than expected. I will probably go fast on these two topics here. And then I would like to go more into the subject of leading in an agile environment. By the way, I'm stopping to share the screen. How's it going so far? Is it anybody? You guys are okay? Mira's
Yeah,
working.
so far so good.
Okay, good. You're a very large group. Nice to see you, all these people here, or all these names actually. Okay, so what can we do? I'm going to share my screen again just for a second, so I'm sure that we are all talking about the same thing. There you go. So you see now I'm zooming back. Okay. There are a few things down here, these things here that we will use later, these guys. Don't worry for now. We will use these later. And up here, I have created 6 spaces, 6 workspaces for the 6 rooms I will be creating. So when I create a breakout room, you will find yourself in a smaller group. Each room has a number. Just remember the number of your room. So when you will work in your own workspace. Of course, you can also see what the other people are doing. And I invite you to take a look at what other people are doing in their rooms. But at least you have a space for yourself. So the first thing I suggest that we do is to take these 2 questions here. I would like to invite you to have a short discussion in your group regarding these 2 things. How is business changed in the 21st century? Which are the challenges that organizations are facing these days? What is different compared to 20 years ago or 10 years ago? And another, at the same time, because then again, I need to save time, while you do that, you might also want to have a short discussion about this thing. What is the difference between management and leadership? And to help you think about these steps like on the topic here, management versus leadership, I'm going to uncover one thing down here. Oops, sorry. Here, quotes. And what you find here, now it's visible to everyone, are a number of quotes which I like about leadership and management. So it's just something that can help you think about what is management, what is leadership, and how that relates to organizations in the 21st century. So would be okay if I opened the breakout rooms now? Can we go with the breakout rooms? Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm also setting a timer, like let's say 9 minutes, and I'm starting the timer now. So you will have the timer at the bottom of your Miro window. Keep an eye on the timer, and let's try to put something in your work areas in a few minutes. I'm going to randomize the breakout rooms. I'm going to create 6, and let's go. And if you are still here, you should have received a pop-up window, and you should accept to enter the room. Yep.
Já?
Hello. Yes. Can I help you? Tell me.
Hello.
Hello. Hi there. Can I help?
Yes. This is a workshop, right?
Oh, you just came in? You just arrived?
Yes, I just arrived.
Okay, so I have divided people into smaller rooms and they're doing some exercise. I can move you randomly into some room if you want, so you can meet somebody else. What do you think?
Okay.
Okay, actually the exercise is going to finish in a couple of minutes, but at least you can, get up to speed with them. So yeah. So just give me a second and I will move you to room number 6. And there you go.
Thank you.
Hello.
Hello, hello.
This thing always reminds me of, Star Trek, people being teleported from one place to another. It's fun. It's fun. So we're waiting for the teleporter.
Yes, to arrive.
Yeah. So how did it go, by the way?
80% of the time spent on one question, and then all of a sudden, oh my God, 2 minutes left, and rushing with the second one.
Yes, we are trying to learn how to work in a team and to achieve the goals. But for the last task, I think we'll manage it.
Of course. We'll get better and better and better.
Yes.
Yes.
It's all about agility. Yeah.
Yeah. I actually learned to enjoy working remotely with a large group, and it's surprising how easy it is to create a sense of community. After all, I mean, if you do anyway, I don't want to waste much. We don't have much time, so I need to move on.
You can continue until the others join, so there is no problem.
Yeah. Okay, so I jumped into a couple of rooms just to be sure that people were doing fine, and also took a look at your sticky notes. So I see that, of course, you mentioned that we are living in a VUCA world. So we live in a volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous world. There's more competition. Everything moves faster. I'm sorry. The current pandemic is a turning point, which is a good interesting thought. It's funny. I've seen a tweet a while ago, and the question was, who led the digital transformation in your company? Was it your CEO, your CTO, or COVID?
I would say COVID.
Yeah,
I think that we are all agree in agreement about that.
Yeah. But that's the thing about crisis. They bring change with them. For good and for bad, but they bring change. So thank you very much for that part. So this was basically the intent of this part was to make you think whether or not our traditional way of managing a company can be fit for a world that is it's globalized, interconnected, fast-moving, unpredictable, uncertain. The second question that I suggested was, what is the difference between management and leadership? Remember, and that also is a very big question. Usually when we have this workshop in a reasonable amount of time, which usually is a couple of days, 16 hours or 18 hours, we spend a good 15, 20 minutes just thinking about this. But I like a quote. The many quotes that I put on the mirror board. I like the one from Grace Hopper when she said, "You manage things, you lead people." So, and that's a very important thing, because I've been giving so many workshops about leadership, agile leadership, and the point is not to bash management. We need good managers. We need people that are very good at managing stuff. So we need people that are good at managing money, managing infrastructures, managing legal agreements, managing safety. We need managers, good managers to manage stuff. And also, we need people who are able to give a direction, give a sense, give a meaning to what we are doing. And those are the leaders, right? So there is this thing about leadership, which for some reason we are all very fascinated by this idea of a leader. But if you think about it, somebody is in a leadership position only because somebody else is in a followership position. In other words, you're a leader only if somebody wants to follow you. There is no leader if there is no follower. And you cannot force people to follow you, because if you will not be a leader, it will be a different relationship if you force people to follow you, right? Now, in traditional organizations, it's very common to have managers that also have a position of power and authority. And that, of course, makes a lot of sense, because very frequently these managers that need to manage staff, they also have responsibilities. So it would not be fair to give someone a responsibility without giving also the power to change things, right? It would not be fair for me to tell you, you're now responsible for everybody to be happy at your 6-year-old birthday party, so because you have no control over that, right? It would not be fair for me to tell you, you're now responsible for the outcome of this project, which involves a lot of people, but you cannot decide anything. Okay, if I give you responsibility, but I don't give you power, that's not fair. And for a long time, organizations have been working on this principle, that if somebody has responsibility, they also need to have power. But what we have learned is that when people work in a cognitive environment, they need to be able to think in a certain way. So then again, I'm kind of moving around the topics I wanted to talk about because we started a bit later. But I'm just going to mention now, without further ado, one thing that is called Project Aristotle. Now, are you guys familiar with Project Aristotle from Google? No, okay. So here's the, okay, long story short. A few years ago, Google ran an internal research because they realized that different teams, even though they were apparently in the same conditions and the same environment, different teams performed differently. So they had high-performing teams and other teams which apparently were in the same situation, but were not so good performing. And so they started looking into this. And the first thing they started to look at was the usual things, like how much people are paid or which school they come from. The things that are easier to see, they started to look into that. And then they realized that the things that are easier to see are not the most important ones. The most important ones are things that are very hard to see. And I'm going to mention that in a second. But before doing that, they also asked themselves, Google asked themselves, a very good question. And the question is, what is a team? That's a very good question. What is a team? And so what I suggest is that you spend like 3 or 4 minutes in your breakout room, and you don't need to put down any sticky if you don't want to. What I will ask you to do is when we come back, please have one spokesperson in your group that can share with everybody else what you thought. Okay. So the question is, then again, what is a team? Or what is a work group, for instance? What's the difference between a work group and a team? Okay, so I'm going to open the breakout room for 3-4 minutes, and then we'll share. Okay, let's go. Same rooms as before, so you don't have to introduce each other again. Welcome back. Oh, there you are. Great. Great. So anybody wants to share like one sentence or two, one for each group?
I can start. I took the short straw, so so we came up with this sentence.
Sorry, there's some.
There.
Yeah, you can.
So it's a team is a collection of individuals who share a common goal and a common vision, who are aligned, and I forgot the other one. There was something. Yeah, but basically it's this. It's a collection of individuals who are
Collaborate.
And collaborate. Thank you, Mariana. And collaborate in order to achieve this common goal.
Thank you, guys. Thanks a lot. Anybody else?
I'd like to add to that that we also talked about how there was more trust in the group and there's more communication between the group as part of a team versus a work group where it might be you're working towards a common goal, but you're working more individually.
Okay. Thank you. Jenny. Yeah. Anybody else?
Well, I didn't hear what Cesar said because I arrived a little bit late, but we were also discussing that a work group could be also working in a time-limited frame, which has any previous relation, and they were there just to perform some tasks. Instead of a team, they would know each other, they have a common goal, and they might self-organize themselves to achieve that goal.
Thank you very much. Anybody else? I think we had 5 rooms.
I would add something else, if I may. Okay, in a team, I believe there's shared accountability in the sense that the team shares the success or the failure of some type of work. On the other hand, a work group might not be in the same way.
Yeah. Thank you. Good. If there's anybody else, or can I move on? Yeah. Okay. So thank you very much. And of course, you all were right on the point. The reason why I like to ask this question about what's the difference between a work group and a team is that a work group is frequently is the result of an industrial approach to the organization. The common metaphor in organizations today, the more widely seen, is the metaphor that the organization is a production machine. And it doesn't matter if your organization is not producing anything tangible like, this glass. Even if you're in finance, for instance, or you are in research, medical research, doesn't matter. No, the organization, the metaphor is our organization is a production machine. And therefore, we need to coordinate individuals so they need to get some work done. In the same way that you need to coordinate machinery in a certain way to optimize the process and get some work done. Now, of course, I am oversimplifying. Reality is much more complex than this, but I'm sure that if you look into organizations from this perspective, you will see that we tend to manage organizations as if they were a machine to produce something. The thing is, if you need to coordinate individuals, it's very common to take people from here, there, and there, you put them together, you give them some task that they need to perform. And another effect of this industrial mindset is that if one person, for instance, in that work group is not required 100% of the time to do that kind of task, then what do? You strive for 100% resource utilization, meaning that you tell to this guy, hey, 50% of your time you're doing nothing, so I'll allocate you for 50% of your time to this other project. Okay, so you have people working on multiple projects at the same time, because what we strive for is 100% resource allocation, which from a machine perspective is understandable. The problem is people, of course, especially people doing cognitive work, they don't work like machines. So a work group is usually a group of people who are given a specific task, and they need coordination from above, because nobody has the whole picture. Okay, they need to be managed. Therefore, we need managers. We need managers to manage the work group. A team, as you guys pointed out, is a group of individuals who have a common goals, and they hold each other accountable for the outcome, for the result. Usually my analogy is, I don't know, like a basketball team. In a basketball team, you have a group of people who have a common goal, which is score more points than the other guys. Okay, that's our common goal. And we hold each other accountable, and actually we work together. So together we score more points than the other team. Individualism in a team is not as strong as it could be in a work group, because in a work group, people are frequently evaluated for their individual performance. In a team, if you take, for instance, a soccer team, if you start giving more money to the player who scores the more points, it's very possible that that player will not pass the ball to their teammates, even though that would be a better strategy, right? To score more points. So you kill teamwork because you measure and reward individual performance, right? Which is why, for instance, in modern organizations, there's also always some kind of balance between reward and performance measurement for the team and something for the individual as well. Because that works much better in terms of holding each other accountable for the overall outcome and not for the individual task that somebody performed. In other words, if you have teams, people start to think about the higher goal. If you have work groups, people think about doing tasks, and they lose perspective of why they're doing that task. How does this relate to leadership and management? Because it is the responsibility of the leader to create a culture where teamwork and mutual support can be effective and efficient for the organization. Because then again, we are not talking about people playing basketball on a Saturday afternoon just because they like to do that. We're talking about doing business. So the real question is, how can I create, as a leader, how can I create a culture where people work at their best in their own interest and in the interest of the business of our clients, customers, and so on and so on and so on. So it's a much more systemic perspective. It's not mechanistic. It's more organic. Right? It's a completely different approach. So Project Aristotle. If you go back to, actually, let me share the screen. It's easier. So I'm sure that you're seeing what I'm seeing. So Miro board down here. We have the Project Aristotle, this guy here. Okay. So the first thing that Google realized is that a work group is not a team. A team culture is very different from the work group culture. Oh, and by the way, there is another implication between team and work group. The strategy, the organizational strategy, when you have a work group, is that you have work that needs to be done. So you put people together so that they can do that work. Like for instance, you have a project. Okay, you have a project, so you have a budget, you have a deadline, you need to do staffing to put people on the project, and so on and so on and so on. But the idea is there is work that needs to be done, so we move people and we put people together so that the work can be done. If you have a team, it's a different approach. If you think about it, a team requires stability. People need to get to know each other. Even a basketball team, for the player to work well together, they need to play for a long time. They need to play several games. They need to train together. They need to practice together. They need to, basically we need stable as possible teams. But if you have as stable as possible teams, that means that when work comes in for the company, you don't move individuals to the work. You find the right team and you give the work to the team. So it's a completely different approach. If you have work groups, you move people to the work. If you have stable teams, you send work to the most appropriate team and you keep the team stable. Okay? It's a different organizational approach. So that's one thing. The other thing about this Aristotle project is that what Google realized is that for people to perform well in a team, they need these 5 things that you can read on the screen. The first one, they need psychological safety. It means that people will not contribute as they could if they are scared of speaking out their mind, of providing different opinions, pointing out problems, and so on and so on and so on. So psychological safety is when people feel safe to speak out their mind, even and especially if their opinion is different from somebody else's. Which means we need diversity of views and diversity of opinions and diversity of ideas to be innovative and smart and intelligent as companies. People need to feel safe in diversity. So that's the thing about psychological safety. If there is psychological safety, now for some reason they designed these 5 items on top of each other. I think it's more of a network. They are all interconnected. But anyway, the second one is dependability, which means that I can trust that my teammates will be true to their word and will be reliable. Basically, I will be reliable for them. The other thing that people need, which is also a basic fundamental human need for somebody, is what we call organizational clarity, which is very simple. People need to know how to work, where to find the information they need, where to get the tools they might need, where to ask for help if they have a problem. Basically, they need clarity in how we perform our work, which is not a set of instructions. Organizational clarity is we know how we work and we know what to do in every situation. I know where to ask, I know where to look, I know what to do. And if I don't know, I know that there is someone that can tell me. Okay? That's structural organizational clarity. And then there is something that is more related to the importance that to people as part of a larger society. The fourth one is meaning. And that means that people are happier to work and contribute and collaborate if they find a personal meaning in what they're doing. And then again, we could talk for a couple of hours about this, but people have different reasons or different values that give meaning to their work. For instance, for some people, learning constantly give meaning to what they're doing. For some people, being beneficial to the society is very important. For some people, sharing is important. For some people, being challenged is very important. Some people need to feel challenged all the time to be happy. Anyway, that different people have different needs, different values, but if they find meaning in what they do, they will probably work better in the team. And the last thing is people need to know and to see that what they're doing is not just performing tasks. That thing have a larger impact for the customer, for the society, for other people in the organization, because sometimes your client is an internal client. So just knowing that what we're doing to provide, to generate this impact, positive impact on somebody else's work or life, is another thing that people, sometimes we use this cartoon. There are two guys breaking stones. And you ask one guy what you're doing, and the guy tells you, I'm breaking stones. And the other one, it tells you, yes, I'm breaking stones because I'm building a cathedral. So it's not a task, it's the purpose that makes the difference. Good. So I've spoken too long. I don't like to talk too much, especially when we don't have much time. And do you have any question before we continue about this? Or any, not only a question, but also a comment, any idea, any suggestion, anything that comes to your mind?
Do you see any common pitfalls in having a person being both leader and a manager?
It's tricky. It's very tricky. Let's put it this way. I have seen great managers who have zero leadership skills, but they were still very good managers and people respected that. I've seen the opposite. People with zero management skills and no authority in the company, but who were very well respected in the group so when they spoke, people would listen. Okay. And sometimes I've been lucky enough to see both things together. Somebody who is very competent, respected for their ability as a manager, and also very respected for the wisdom or for the integrity that they have. So when this works, it's beautiful to see. By the way, I'm not a big fan of the great heroic leader. I think that in an organization that wants to be extremely adaptive and reactive, leadership must be distributed. Every time you centralize leadership, you slow down the decisional process. And very often we don't have time to have a slow decisional process these days. We need to in an organization, there are hundreds or sometimes thousands of decisions made every day. The faster we are at making decisions, the faster we are to react or to adapt. And the only way to be faster is to distribute leadership. I'm not talking about flat organizations, but what I'm saying is that centralizing the decision-making processes is not a good idea. So when you see somebody who is very highly respected and also have a good management position, it's good because it works, but at the same time, it can create other problems. Like everybody goes to this guy or girl to ask what they should do, or to ask for permission, or to ask for advice, and so on. So it becomes like a big magnet, and everybody go there, and it becomes a bottleneck in the end. The other anti-pattern that I've seen is when authority is used to compensate for the lack of, what was the other word? Not authority. Anyway.
I thought you're going to say leadership, authority used as when there's lack of leadership.
Yes.
Charisma.
But the word I was looking for was
I was thinking the same thing. I was thinking the same thing. I thought that you were going to say leadership, lack of leadership.
Yes. No, there's this. I think that Jenny Jenny sounded American, right?
Yep.
Yep. Where from, Jenny?
Wisconsin.
I'm sorry, where?
Wisconsin.
Oh, Wisconsin. Okay. So yes, the two words I was looking for in English are authority and being authoritative. Okay.
Oh.
Okay, you have authority, or you can be authoritative. Okay, and sometimes people compensate for their lack of being authoritative with authority. I'll give you another example. I don't know if you guys use or Scrum in any way. Okay.
Yes.
It never works when the Scrum Master or the product owner are also managers in the team. Never works. I've never seen that working. Never. Never, because all the politics and all the power games, they still find their way into these roles. In Scrum, the Scrum team, nobody's boss, right?
Yes.
Anybody else's boss. So
I agree. Right now, I'm on an Agile squad, and what you are saying is correct. I can see that happens, and any function on that, I can see. I agree totally with you.
Thank you. And by the way, just remember, 95% of the time, people are well-meant. 95% of the time, people are good people and well-meant. It's the system in which they work that forces people to behave in a certain way. Because if you are a manager in that team and you're also a product owner, but for instance, the organization is going to measure you on certain performance indicators which are not consistent with the Scrum values, I'm sorry, Scrum is going to lose. Right? There is no way that a strong system can make a well-meant person operate as they should if the system is designed badly.
How, can I ask a question?
Please do.
How do you deal with the 5%?
I don't. You mean,
Very good question.
You mean me as an organizational enterprise agility coach, or if I were in that situation?
Yeah, I mean, coming from your experience, and I'm sure you've had those experiences where you have that 5% on the team, people that you try your best, you try different approaches, but he or she is really not committed. He's not committed to the team.
Yeah, that's a very, very interesting question. The simpler and most dramatic answer could be the old motto in organizational change, which is change the organization or change organization. If you can bring change, you do that. If you cannot, you move to another organization. So change the organization or change organization. But that's very dramatic. It's kind of black and white. There's no gray area in between.
Okay, well, at
people
least
do they know?
Actually, no. I have two things that come into my mind. One is this: sometimes I had to work with the higher management and sometimes we just had to have people removed. Sorry. because that's the thing. If an organization changes the way they operate, it's like for you, going back to the basketball metaphor, you start playing a basketball game, and then somebody tells you during the game, they tell you, oh no, we're playing cricket now. And you go, I don't like cricket. I was here for basketball, not for cricket. Okay. So, and that's part of a organizational change. People will be unhappy, and if they don't, and we can help them to find a better place. That's the thing.
Right.
Yeah. The other thing to do is sometimes, and that's a coaching approach, is just to ask these people, what are you missing? So we're working now in a way that is different from what you were used to. What are you missing of the old way of working? Because sometimes you can just find a solution. Somebody told me a real story. One of my colleagues told me a real story about a guy very unhappy in the team because they created this nice scrum room and people were there are teamwork and stuff, and he was not participating. So eventually the coach asked this guy, what are you missing? And the answer was, I missed the plants and the lights that I had in my office. That's what he needed. It was a very simple question. What do you need? What are you missing? Okay. I had a window seat, and I had plants. And now I'm working in a corner and I don't like this.
Yeah, but sometimes you get people answering things like, I miss when I used to work back at my other company, we used to use Waterfall. And I had one person telling me that he missed being told what to do.
Yeah, I totally get that. And that's a lack of psychological safety. The reason why people like to be told what to do is because they don't have to take any responsibility, they don't have to take any risk, they don't have to put themselves under the spotlight.
Yeah.
Most of the time, because they don't feel safe. If you make them feel safe, okay, then of course you will have extrovert people and more introvert. Of course, I mean, likely we're all different, but still, most of the time is a problem of the lack of psychological safety. When people tell you, I liked it when they told me what to do and I didn't have to think or to take any responsibility.
That's when people accommodate in what they used to do, and they are not ready for the change.
Mm-hmm. Yes, yeah, because as a leader, we didn't create an environment where people would feel safe and happy. Okay, thank you very much for your comments. I'm just trying to think if I should tell you more about. Okay, so what I'm going to do, since we have more or less 15 minutes left, what I'm going to do is I'm going to skip the part about complexity because it's probably too much for now. I need it.
You mean the Knevin framework?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of Knevin, but I'm an even bigger fan of Knevin applied to leadership and management. I can just introduce the concept very briefly. By the way, any of you is familiar with the Knevin framework already? Just use your virtual thumb if you don't have the cam on.
No, I don't.
Okay. So there is this gentleman, Welsh gentleman in the name of Dave Snowden. Okay. And he's been working for the last 15, 20 years on the idea of complexity. Now, let me put it very, very simple. If you look at the world, you can probably divide it into two very large, big categories, which are things that are mechanical and things that are organic. And the difference is that everything that is mechanical or mechanistic is very highly predictable. It means if you take my car, the behavior of my car is predefined. What can happen is that my car wears down or it breaks, but otherwise the behavior of my car is very predictable. Turn the key, hopefully the engine will start. Okay. Turn the wheel left, hopefully I will go left. Very predictable. And these things we call ordered systems. A car is a system because it's a bunch of components put together, interconnected. So it's a complicated system, and it has an order. But then if you look at organic systems like a lake, for instance, you take a nice lake, and then you take a frog of a species that is not native. You take a frog from Australia, you bring it to a lake in Portugal, and you throw the frog into the lake. There is no way that you can predict what will happen 1 year, 2 years, 3 years from now. There is no way, right? Because the ecosystem will change and evolve and adapt in ways that you can make assumptions, you can make hypotheses, but you have no certainty. Now, after the fact, for instance, if the new frog kills all the bugs and therefore all the snake dies, I don't know, whatever. No, after the fact, you can reconstruct the chain of cause and effect. Okay, after the fact, you can say, okay, I understand now what happened. So there is some kind of order. But if you look into the future, still you cannot predict what will happen 2 years from now or 2 months from now. Okay. Now, organizations, markets, societies, families, they're all complex systems. There are systems that evolve and change and adapt depending on what happens in their environment and what happens internally. So they change in ways that we cannot anticipate with certainty. We can understand most of the time afterwards, but we cannot anticipate. Now, one of the biggest challenges, in my opinion, for leadership nowadays is to move away from this idea of predictability that we have from the Industrial Revolution. Because in the Industrial Revolution, not only we were dealing with machine production, but also the world was not as fast and interconnected as it is today. Okay. 150 years ago, you could not take a plane, go for a meeting in Budapest, and then go back to Lisbon on the same day. Okay, you could not do that. Your competitors would not be in another continent 150 years ago. Okay, your competitors were local 150 years ago. Now the world is much faster, much more interconnected. Therefore, it's very hard to predict what will happen. Still, people strive for certainty. It's a human need. Everything that is uncertain is potentially a life threat for the brain. Okay. If I go into a dark room and I don't know what's there, I immediately go into fear mode because I don't know what I'm going to find. There is no certainty. Lots of managers still thinks that the world is predictable, and they project this desire for predictability on the organization with silly things like, we need this project done in 2 months. And you have never done such a project. You have no idea what you will find when you will actually start working on that thing. Okay. Still, they tell you, yes, this must be done in 2 months. So one of the biggest challenges for leadership, I think, these days is to embrace uncertainty. To be leaders in an environment that is not longer predictable. Bjarte Bolsnes, let's say the father of beyond budgeting, a while ago, beyond budgeting is an agile approach to finance. Okay, let's put it this way. You wrote like one year, it was a nice tweet. You wrote something like, losing control is the manager's greatest fear. Having control is the manager's greatest illusion. That's a very interesting thing to think about. Because in a world that is so fast changing, the idea that you do have control is just because you are tricking yourself into thinking that you do have control. Now, the worst damage I have seen done by leaders and managers in organizations is when they apply a good mindset to the wrong domain. Let me tell you what I mean. If you work in systems that are predictable, like earlier today, maybe you have seen my talk about Lean and Agile. Now, in Lean, we try to make things standardized as much as we can. And if we need to change, we change, but if not, we try to standardize. Now, that kind of mindset is a mindset where we need experts, right? That's the thing about domains that are complicated, like fixing a car. To fix a car, you need a mechanic. Why do you need a mechanic? Because a mechanic is an expert in how a car works. You need experts. And if I bring my car to a mechanic for some problem, maybe he doesn't know where the problem is, but he knows where to look, right? A good mechanic knows where to look. So if I have a problem because the problem is that the engine doesn't start, for instance, he knows that the tires have nothing to do with that, okay? He might check the gas filter, he might check the battery, he might check the sparks, whatever, because he knows where to look for. Basically, when there is a problem, the mechanic knows what he does not know. For instance, he knows that he does not know if the spark plugs are working correctly. And so he goes and checks that because he's an expert. He knows what he does not know. In an unpredictable environment, if I put a frog into a lake, as I told you before, I don't know what's going to happen. And not only, of course, I can make hypotheses, but I might not even know what it is that I don't know. Okay. Now, in this framework that Cesar, as mentioned before, Knevin, we call the complicated domain the domain of the known unknowns. I know what I don't know, the known unknowns. The complex domain, like the lake, is the domain of the unknown unknowns. I don't know what I don't know. Now, being a leader in a context where you don't even know what you don't know is a completely different leadership approach. So the worst damage I've seen is when, for instance, I've seen experts moving into a complex domain and providing a solution. Like someone that goes into your lake and says, of course, if you put this frog into this lake, this will happen. Why? Because I've seen that similar in another lake. Sorry, it was another lake, it was a different frog. Okay? So how does this translate to organizations? Let's say that your market is fast moving and you need to innovate. If you need to innovate, you need to find something to put on the market, you might not even know what you don't know in terms of what the clients want. If you have one manager that goes into that domain and says, this is what the market wants because I am the expert, okay? You are immediately reduced the spectrum of your options because you had one expert selecting just a very small range. That's the solution. And you guys don't know because I am the expert. The thing is, in a complex domain, leadership must allow for failure. You must go, the only way to move fast in a complex domain is by experimentation, by making hypotheses, validate the hypothesis, and then decide based on what we have learned. And the faster you're able to do that, the faster you move. Daniel Ek, the founder and CEO of Spotify, I remember somebody asked him, how come that Spotify is growing so fast? That was a few years ago. And he replied, because we make mistakes faster than anybody else. That's why we grow so fast, because we make mistakes faster than anybody else, meaning that we learn faster than anybody else. And also meaning that it's fine in our culture to make mistakes because people are psychologically safe and they can try and fail. But by doing so, we learn and we move fast. So maybe you understand now that if you want to move fast in a complex environment, you need a kind of leadership which is supportive, which is creating the right environment where not only you are the expert, because it's good if you have an expert, but more than everything else, you create the condition for people to operate at their best. Because they have autonomy, they feel safe, they're able to resolve their conflicts, but without your intervention and a number of other things. It's a very different kind of leadership if you move into an adaptive, agile world. You cannot just direct people. So that's the story. And I think it's 6:01 in Portugal.
Yes.
7:01 in Italy. And we have lost Jenny, but in Wisconsin, I believe it's around 2 p.m. maybe. Good. Is there anything else I can do for you? I mean, this was just an introduction to Agile Leadership. You might want to remember that I work with RATAC Portugal. So we organize trainings online, and we use also to have physical trainings. By the way, I love to be in Portugal. I love you guys. It's such a warm and friendly country.
Thank you.
So anyway, I'll be back as soon as I can.
Yeah, I hope to see you.
Anything else I can do for you in the next couple of minutes?
I was just a comment. I was.
I also had a cat.
I was listening to you, and I was
He's
thinking
not here now. But
about what happens.
anything else I can do for you?
Like I was saying, not a question,
You
just
guys
a comment.
for now?
Are you listening?
Andrea, can you hear Victor?
Good enough for now?
I think that is not listening.
Andrea?
I'm hearing you.
I'm sorry. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I had a problem with my speakers. They were not. Okay, now I can hear you again. Yes.
I was saying that I was listening to you and I was thinking about what happened in my organization, and almost everything that you said, it happens or happened in the past in my organization, and for that reason I was listening to you with very attention, and it was very interesting listening and connecting dots, and everything that you were saying in my mind was making all the sense, So for that, thank you.
Oh, well, thank you for the feedback. So now you don't feel so alone. There are other companies. Yep, you're not alone. Definitely. Yeah, thank you. How do you pronounce your first name? Is it Vitor?
Vitor Dias.
Vitor Dias.
Exactly.
Yeah. Anything else? You can find me on LinkedIn if you want to keep in touch, of course, and I invite you to join me on LinkedIn if you like.
Okay.
And if you have any questions, of course, I cannot. It's impossible for me to do consultancy from here. But if you have questions, please just write to me, and I'll see what I can do.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Andrea.
Oh, by the way,
Really interesting.
one last thing. Just remember in the Miro board, just save the link to the Miro board, because the Miro board is sitting there for a couple of weeks at least. You also have references, you know, in the board. Let me show you very quick, because that could be helpful for you. Down here, this document here, okay, it's actually, if you click on it,
Can you just unhide the other two containers? The Kinevin.
sure. You're right.
Yes, please.
Oh yeah, it's nothing secret. This is Kinevin, and this is a leadership model which I like to explain. Is called, comes from Robert Dilts. Basically, the idea is that no leader works alone. You are interconnected to your ecosystem, to other people. Anyway, here,
Yeah, it's a lot of. We can read about change management in this list.
I'm sorry, Romina, you were saying?
About change management, because if you want to change something, especially people, you have to make change management people.
Yes. I'm not the kind of guy that thinks that you can change people. You can change the environment, and so that generates a different behavior. I'm sorry, I'm trying to. Okay, this reference is here. For some reason, okay. I clicked. You see, it's actually 3 pages. Double click. You see.
Okay. Okay.
Or you can just download the PDF. Double click. Download the PDF. This is some of the material that I use in my much longer workshop, Agile Leadership. But you know, at least if you have a few videos, few books, few articles that you might want to look into. Good. So, done? Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Thanks.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Andrea.
See you soon.
Thank you so much. Bye bye.
Bye. Thank you.